When India gained independence, there was a promise of a completely new, equitable society. But for many, that promise felt hijacked almost immediately. There is a very specific, popular theory of how this betrayal worked. Imagine the country collected 1,000 crores in taxes. The theory goes that corrupt leaders funneled 800 crores directly into their own pockets, leaving a meager 200 crores to share. When you divide that tiny fraction among millions of citizens, the math simply doesn't work. It creates an environment of artificial, brutal scarcity, where surviving on your rightful share is impossible. And when people are starved of basic resources, survival takes over. This structural theft pushed ordinary citizens toward moral compromises. People felt forced to cheat, hoard, or steal just to feed their families. When scarcity becomes the baseline for one generation, it shapes the institutions the next generation inherits. This survival-first mindset eventually became baked into administrative and corporate culture, turning a temporary necessity into a permanent cycle of corruption. It feels like a comic book villain's plot, a few greedy men sitting on giant piles of hoarded cash. But tracking a nation's disappearing wealth reveals a systemic failure far more complicated and far more dangerous than a simple vault of stolen money. To understand where the money actually went, we have to look at the basic mechanics of a national economy. A government's tax pool is rarely distributed as direct cash payouts to citizens, especially not in 1947. India was starting from a staggering deficit. There was virtually no domestic heavy industry, widespread extreme poverty, and a national literacy rate of barely 12%. That theoretical 1,000-crore tax base couldn't be handed out. It had to be poured into massive foundational infrastructure that no single citizen could afford on their own. Things like military defense and the creation of entirely new, heavy industrial sectors. Capital had to be channeled into nationwide electrical grids, public health care, and the endless physical labor required to build and maintain massive public transit networks. But there is a brutal disconnect here. While the government was making these grand macroeconomic investments on paper, the immediate reality for the common person was very different. Millions found themselves living in extreme squalor, wondering what exactly they were free from. So even if the math of the 80-20 cash hoarding conspiracy is historically flawed, the anger behind it is absolutely justified. The feeling that the wealth never reached the ground level is correct. A decentralized administrative drain proves far more effective at depleting national wealth than any individual hoarding cash in a vault. This systemic leakage was the true culprit.